Welcome to Board Game Binge, the place where we bring you bite-sized, bingeable board game content from across the industry. I'm your host, James Staley, and in this episode, we're chatting with Kristian from Minor Disaster Games, a UK-based indie board game publisher. His debut title, Trouble on the Tempus, is currently on Kickstarter. Kristian, welcome to the binge. How you doing, my friend?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Oh,
it's good to be here.
It is amazing having you. I thank you for your time, and I know you're here representing a trio, or the Fab Three, I guess we'll call them today. And
we are.
So who are they? Who are the Fab Three?
So the group is me, my brother, and my wife. I designed the game originally, so it's all 10 years ago, over 10 years ago now. My brother is a graphic designer, and he works for himself, so he knows how to make art for the game, and two, knew how to run a business better than I did. And my wife is a producer in theatre and does other things as well. So again, she's got a lot more of the brains. So they are the brains. I'm the game designer.
And you're the designer.
Yeah, you can't just draw things on cardboard and hope that sells. You have to actually know how to run a business as well.
Yeah, it's true. It is a beast, and I know it's a theme that we constantly say. I'm sure our listeners are tired of me saying it, but man, there is so much involved beyond just creating a game, right? It is literally if you're not sending it to a publisher and having another publisher take it from there, if you're self-publishing it, you're getting into entrepreneurship and you're learning how to run a small business, right? It doesn't get any more clear than that. So if that isn't something that people are interested in, the best path to take is to try to pitch it relentlessly until you find somebody to take it, right?
I would not be doing this without them. Like, I wouldn't be attempting. I'd still be trying to sell the game. I wouldn't be attempting to run a business without them. Plenty of people do it by themselves. And I know a lot of people who, indie publishers, and they do it by themselves, and hats off to them, but not for me.
Did anybody encourage you? Like, was it you that decided you want to take this and make a game out of it and publish it, or was it the others on your team saying, "Hey, I think we can do this. Let's just kind of let's put our nose to the grind, so to speak"?
It sort of happened organically. Like I said, I made it over 10 years ago, the original version, and I did try to sell it a few times and to show it about. But like I said, my brother already runs his own company. And my wife does a lot of like that sort of thing anyway, so it sort of just kind of made sense that we just like, well, no one's buying it, let's just see if we can do it. And we're not like we've invested our entire lives into it, so if it doesn't work, then oh well. But you only live once, don't you? You've got to give it a try.
That's true. Well, what's your day job? What do you do when you're not working on games?
So that's kind of a big question, because I've never really had a career. I've bounced around a lot. So my background is film and television.
Oh, sweet.
And I spent the most time being a sound recordist and designer and technician. But I haven't done that for a little while. And I was made redundant a couple of years ago from the TV kit house I was working in. And since then, I've started training to become a driving instructor.
Oh, wow.
Partly because I like to drive. I've done a lot of driving jobs over the years. And again, self-employed, sort of do your own thing. So that's where I'm at the moment. But if you wanted my entire career history, it would take way too long to go through, because I'm one of those people that like changes job every 2 years.
Yeah, that's okay though. It's the entrepreneurial side, right? And having been in kind of the creative industry, right? If we look at like film, television, things like this. There's a lot of transferable skills, I think, when you take that to something like board game design, right? And telling a story on a table, right? And I know we're going to get into the game in a second, because this game looks really cool. And it is kind of that story behind it, right? Which got me really intrigued when I came across this game and reached out to you guys. So that ability to kind of change and constantly kind of retool is also skills that people who do entrepreneurship find this kind of environment something that is a sandbox that they're able to play in probably easier than others, right? People that are kind of a 9-to-5 career seem to have a harder time kind of going with a lot of the uncertainty that comes with trying to launch a game into the marketplace and the, quite frankly, figuring stuff out, right? A lot of being a publisher is just trying to figure stuff out, right? Calling people, reaching out to different people, checking with this person, see what they did, reading blogs and so on and so forth to try to kind of put this kind of puzzle together. Okay, now how are we going to take this thing to market, right?
Yeah, and it's just an odd combination of skills that just sort of seems to fit into place. I mean, the most obvious one is my brother's the graphic designer. Liam is does all the art for us. That's like the most obvious one. But yeah, my wife's produced plays. I've produced short films.
Yeah.
We've just got that organizational skill that we sort of honed over decades of doing strange little jobs here and there. So just kind of, yeah, like you say, it just kind of falls to get into one place, which is something that I appreciate like a lot of groups wouldn't necessarily have.
Yeah. And you being the
Especially if you're a
gamer,
solo.
were you able to pull, like, how did the other two get pulled in? Did you and your brother play a lot of games growing up, or?
We did. We were Warhammer 40K was kind of
Mm.
our thing as teenagers. And then I kind of kept up with that and then got into Dungeons and Dragons and all the usual things.
Sure.
And then started collecting board games, as you may be able to notice by me. And so yeah, I kind of then my wife got dragged in because she married me, the fool.
And is she
And
like
did
those
some
same
stuff.
kind of style games? Like, was she into Warhammer, things like that, or was she more the kind of the
No, no, no.
Settlers of Catan and kind of down that road?
Yeah, she definitely had to be introduced to the hobby, so we couldn't go hardcore straight off the bat.
Yeah.
So she was like, yeah, I liked her game. She could like quite a lot of things. Like she very obsessively wanted to buy Hegemony, if you know that one.
Yep.
At the Games Expo we were just at, she kind of got a bit obsessed with that. So she's starting to get into some heavier stuff for sure.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, we had them on this podcast actually. Yeah, that was I think about 150 episodes ago. But
Gosh,
yeah, and you see that often with couples, right? Where it's a cheap entertainment, right? So there's very low cost to get together with friends and play a game. I'm part of a local meetup. There's often in most areas people can find public groups that they can join to go and meet other people, and it's pretty low cost, right? Way of having an evening of entertainment. What I often see in my meetup group when I see couples come in, usually there's one of the two that are like a gamer in the traditional sense, and the other one's kind of new to the hobby. But it doesn't take long for the one that's new to the hobby to really start diving in and really picking it up, right? Because this is a hobby that I think a lot of us get so passionate about that and becomes addictive almost, right? Where you just kind of immerse yourself and you kind of want more, right?
yeah, yeah, for sure. And yeah, like I say, I've gotten her into. We've played Twilight Imperium. She's
Nice.
run the full gamut now. And I think I think on the larger point, we are inherently kind of social creatures
Yeah.
and are increasing kind of online. It can't be a coincidence that the more our world becomes online, the more board games have kind of had a rise because we want to like interact with each other. Some of us may work on our computers from home. We may never actually interact with a human being if we didn't go out and do something on purpose.
Yeah,
So I
if I
can't
think
think
it
it's a coincidence.
like Board Game Arena, which is an online marketplace for playing board games where all the rules and everything are on rails for you. So it's not like any of the Steam games where you're having to like virtually use your hand to pick up pieces and move them. Like
Mm.
it automates everything for you. And there's something to knowing that you're playing against a human somewhere on the other side of the world versus playing against like an AI or an NPC, right? Like if I think back into like the 80s and 90s when you'd play kind of that computer chess, right? You're playing against the computer. You don't have that same kind of feeling than when you know you're playing against an individual. I mean, I play Board Game Arena every day. I have a turn-based game running in the background, and maybe you're going to do one or two moves a day, but it's just having that connection out to all those people that just gives you that feeling, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure.
Did the
Um,
other two help you with your design? Like, was it all your design, and they've kind of come in and helped kind of from a creative standpoint, like the artistic and the business side, or was there any input from the actual design of the game that these two were able to bring to the table?
I mean, the problem there is that it was so long ago because it was over a decade ago. But
Sure.
no, the original, very original version was pretty much just me. It was just something I just sort of sketched together, drew on various pieces of paper, and just kind of like
Sure.
maybe this works as a game. And so yes, it was just me at first, and then adding people when complementary skill sets kind of needed to be added to bring it further and further.
How's it evolved over the past 10 years? Like I got to imagine, like you've probably played a lot of games since 10 years ago. And one of the best piece of advice I was ever given by someone, and I give to others, is if you want to become a great game designer, play a lot of games and play as many different
Oh
types of
yeah.
games, even if it's not your genre. Like, and I try to play a new game every week at my game night. And often someone will like, I know this isn't Jay's type of game, but I'll still play it because I want to get the experience of different mechanisms and different play styles and different concepts that maybe I haven't considered. And I have become a better game designer as a result. Keeping that in mind, I mean, 10 years, there's got to be some evolution on your game that's happened that's been a direct result of your inputs you've had over those years of playing different games, no?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the biggest, or at least one of the most recent, is actually more advice that I got as a screenwriter,
Mm.
and when I was studying it, working film and television, is that when you're in writing, so once you've written something, delete the first sentence, and if it still makes sense, delete the next sentence. Basically, just keep deleting sentences until you find the organic beginning of the story. So just delete the beginning until it stops making sense.
Oh,
Was
I
one of the
love
earliest
that.
pieces of advice. It's just so you don't have too much waffle at the start because you need to really hook somebody on the first page.
Yeah.
And that kind of works in this context as well. Is that the game was way more bloated 10 years ago. There was so many more mechanics and moving parts, and they were fun, but it was just overly complicated. And so slowly over the last couple of years, as we've been developing it properly, I've been slowly deleting something like, well, we don't need that, don't need that, don't need that, don't need that, delete, 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 delete. The biggest one is that the game originally had two disaster decks in it. So when you're drawing
Mm.
like problems, it had a minor disaster deck and a major disaster deck, and those were deleted into just one disaster deck. But we still liked the name, hence how the company got called Minor Disaster Games, because it's
Mm.
a throwback. It was to when we used to have a minor disaster and a major disaster in the game, before we just streamlined it more. So yeah, streamlining has definitely been the biggest kind of changes recently, at least.
Did that just reduce complexity or did it reduce playtime? What did the combining of those two decks do for you?
It just reduced, well, there's two sort of twofold. So yeah, it reduced complexity, but also cost because it's just less cards.
Mm.
So it's just one of those things that kind of like was better for the game play, but also better for the overhead kind of
Cost and things like
of the
that.
thing in it overall. So just kind of luckily solved two problems by accident.
Yeah, it's the whole like kind of innovation through subtraction model. Often a lot of people don't do this, but if you have an idea of the manufacturer you're going to use, I always do this with my manufacturer. So I'll take my game, I'll have my kind of deck that I've got planned out, if there's a deck in my game, and I'll have 12 to 14 different manufacturers quote on that game, right? And I usually narrow it down. It's usually going to be what's long pack, Sky Game, and maybe like Hopes are kind of like the four ones that usually rise to the top in terms of quality versus cost. And once I kind of land on, okay, who am I going to have produce the game? Then I'll ask them, what is your sheet size for your cards? And then what I'll do is I'll subtract or add cards based on the sheet size.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you're going to have like four empty slots on that sheet, you might as well put cards in there. There's no incremental cost to you. Likewise, if you go over the sheet size by one card, that could dramatically increase your cost of product, just with one
Yeah.
card because they had to cut out another sheet, right? So uh, these are important things to know when you get into the manufacturing side, right? And hopefully, if you're doing these adjustments, it's not like impacting the gameplay too much. But this is something that simply even with like you want like visual aids and things like that, you can do. You can kind of max out that sheet size. It's just with additional kind of materials that help with references and things like that. I did that on one game with multiple languages. So I had a reference card in five different languages because of sheet size. I just to max that sheet size, I might as well have done it. So we had in every game five languages for the reference cards, and it didn't really cost me anything extra to do that. So this is something kind of important for people to kind of check out as they're kind of getting into the manufacturing, right?
Yeah,
So
for sure.
with Trouble in the Tempest. So take me through this story. So what is this story about? Like when I hear kind of time travel-ish, I get super excited. So walk me through what is that? Like what's the time travel component of this?
Yeah, the time travel is where it all began, and it's the one thing that the game has been entirely built about. The game I had this time travel concept, and I built the game entirely around it. And anything that didn't suit the time travel eventually got jettisoned. So conceptually, it's about those moments in cooperative, because it's a cooperative game.
Hmm.
There's moments in those co-op games where you suddenly realize that you're about to lose. But if you'd done things slightly differently a couple turns ago, or if you'd like known what you know now, or if you can see that there's branching paths and you know that one's definitely going to lose you the game and one maybe will win, if you could take those moments and manufacture a game around the idea that you could go back and try again, or try a different strategy, or test your theory that like we'd be better off if we've gone left instead of right.
Hmm.
So yeah, could I build a co-op game around that concept of being able to test a different strategy? And then everything just fed off of that basically.
Brilliant. Yeah, as a concept, I was thinking a lot about I'm a big fan of Star Trek Next Generation, right? So that's my generation, that's my Star Trek. And they had a number of episodes over the years. I think it was like 8 years that they ran for, maybe 6 years. And it'd be episodes of this kind of theme, right? Where there'd be some kind of a time loop and they'd have to try to figure out how to do things slightly different to have it kind of work out. This idea of playing co-ops, which I don't play a lot of co-ops, I do play some, but I can totally relate on where you're like, "Ugh." The worst is when you see it coming, when you know that you're not gonna survive, and you're still 10 minutes out before the game's coming to a conclusion. I think it's super cool. So things in your game, they reset back to that starting point, but now you've got the knowledge of the cards, right, that have been flipped over in
Yeah,
that
you've got
particular mix, right?
everything will happen. It's randomized at the start of the game, but everything will then happen in the same order on every time loop.
No, that's so cool.
But it'd be different every game, but that your game will be the same, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely think that's I haven't seen that actually in any games yet, so I think that's quite clever. The Tempest itself is a spaceship, is it?
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
So you've got kind of the classic like co-op where you have different bad stuff happening, and there's a word used for it in your video where you talk about
Probably disaster management. I think that's the
disaster
phrase I
management.
use.
That's perfect way to describe it. Disaster management, which most co-ops are kind of designed on that, right?
Yeah.
And this idea of okay, now I can reset, I thought was pretty clever. But then when I was looking at your expansion packs, you flip the script. Right? So you've got this like there's one of them's like a take that where then you start like stabbing each other in the back and things, right?
Yeah, it's intended more as a kind of it doesn't necessarily have a so much of a mechanical effect, but it's definitely like adds a little bit of role play to like now you draw a card, now your character is obsessed with trying to do this.
Yeah.
So you kind of like have to start working against each other a little bit.
Oh, it's awesome. I love that. I think that's hilarious. And then when I was going through and I was seeing that there's like this idea of like a paradox. Talk to me about the paradox. 'Cause I thought that was quite clever too,
Mm.
where you can reset the timeline, but it's not like you can just reset it and then you're guaranteed just keep resetting it until you win. Like there's problems every time you reset the timeline, like you see in movies with like the butterfly effect and things like that, right?
Yeah, this is apologies, Mark. This is probably be quite a long answer,
That's
but yeah,
okay.
a couple of the things that were sort of key, or like the big kind of stumbling points of the early design of the game, is
Hmm.
making the time travel feel like a superpower, not a chore. Like where you don't want to get players to the point like, oh well, we're going to lose. We've got to time travel backwards. Oh, we have to play the game again. Oh no! So we want to get rid of that feeling. And then the other one, like you said, is you can't just let your players time travel over and over and over and over again
Hmm.
until they win the game, because there's no tension in that. There's not, eventually they're gonna win. So yeah, those were the kind of the two challenges, and the so the streamlining really helped with the first one, which is just cutting the game down so that within about 15-20 minutes at most, you're probably thinking, oh, we've got to time travel. But because you know what's going to happen, that doing that 20 minutes again is probably only going to take 10 minutes.
Yeah.
and it takes less time each time because you do things quicker. So yeah, streamlining that to the point where it feels like, oh, quick, it feels like really powerful to time loop rather than, you know, Bill Murray going insane in Groundhog Day kind of
Yeah.
frustration. And then the paradox is just to stop that the players being able to constantly time travel. So every time you time travel backwards, you add a paradox card into the disaster deck, meaning, and then the discard pile goes on top of it. So that once you've gotten through the deck that you've already seen, so once the time's happened for the second time, when you hit the point in the game that you time traveled away from, it will cause the paradox. The paradox card will be drawn, and it will change the rules in some way, or change like the game layout or the board. It'll just do something very strange. Sometimes they're helpful. In the right circumstances, they can be useful.
Yeah.
But above all else, they are random. And you can lose, and they eventually what they will cause you to blink out of existence if you draw too many of them.
Oh, I
So yeah,
love
they
it.
are a ticking clock for the game. So keep it tense.
Oh, that's awesome. What was the inspiration for this? Like, trying to think back 10 years ago. What was the event, or there's a movie, or what was it that got you down this path?
I guess the primary inspiration is that my gaming group played Pandemic absolutely to death. Like
Mm.
we could beat Pandemic on any difficulty, no matter what the
Oh,
level.
wow.
We were so good at Pandemic. One of the maximum is like 7 epidemic cards. I think is the maximum you can put in, including like the expansions and things. We were just so good at Pandemic. We just literally couldn't play it anymore. Because I don't know why we were so obsessed with that above all else. And then that was just the feed of, you know, can I make a really hard game? So I started playing like really hard co-op games like Ghost Stories. And I've played Ghost Stories over a dozen times and I've never come close to, or felt like I was going to win that game.
Hmm.
So can I make a really hard cooperative game? And then with this time travel concept that was just kind of, I probably just thrown about as an idea amongst when we were chatting about games at some point, just probably just sort of popped up and was like, so lodged in my brain and I started playing with it. So yeah, that's kind of it's generally born out of a playing too much Pandemic, basically.
How long did it take to get that first prototype going where you could play with your friends?
Um, Not too long, and oddly enough, the board itself hasn't changed much since then. That
Mm.
very first cardboard drawing actually is pretty spot on to what the final board looks like, other than it's got better art on it now.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I basically sketched it out and put in a bunch of mechanics directly stolen from other games, including the components and everything else. Just said, create this mashup, and then we played it, and then slowly I sort of made it my own. So yeah, probably once the idea was seeded, within a few weeks, I probably had some
Oh,
sort of
wow.
vague. It didn't work that first version, but I had
Sure.
something put together.
I love it when the creative flow hits because, man,
Mm.
can you crank through a lot of concepts quickly, right? When you enter that state of creative flow. I've had some games that I'm still working on that, are years old that I keep going back and tinkering a bit and then kind of setting aside. And then I'll have other games where I'm working on one game and I get an idea on another thing. And then that we hammered out, like I've had a game I've hammered out in a day, right? And you just sometimes it just hits you where it all kind of comes together of what you want to create and kind of you visualize it, right? And it just kind of springs from there. Was there challenges getting anybody to play this? Because like, did you have other game designers in your group at all, or were you kind of the first guy to kind of say, "Here, I've got some cardboard cutouts. I go, you guys just sit and play with me."
No, yeah, we were just a group of gamers who there was probably maybe 10 or so of us overall, and it kind of the board game thing came about just because it became increasingly difficult for us to meet for D&D, or at least get enough of us
Mm,
together to play role-playing games.
yeah,
So it's like, well, when 3 or 4 people have to drop out at the last minute, we need a backup, so we started collecting board games. And then everyone was quite happy to sit down and play. So it got a lot of test playing straight off the bat, which is probably how it got kind of polished so quickly at the time.
yeah. And did you participate in like UK Games Expo or anything like that, like along the way? Like, was there any kind of taking it out for a test drive, so to speak, and having other people kind of look at it blind and then give some thoughts? Or
Yeah, it was test played at the UK Games Expo. I'm gonna keep saying 10 years ago because I can't be precise with the dates, but
no,
somewhere
that's fine.
around
Yeah,
there. But yeah, some of its very first test play was at the UK Games Expo in their playtest area way back when. And then the Secret Gamers do like a publishers meet and greet, and you can do a little bit of pitching there as well. So I've done that there. But yeah, again, my gaming group has always attended the Games Expo for forever.
Mm,
Since it was a tiny little thing. Now
yeah.
it's a huge, and now it's like, I think it was this, I think this one was the second biggest convention. I think it beat Gen Con,
Oh,
this
really?
year's one. I
Wow.
think so. I don't quote me on that, but I think it did, for the size. So yeah, so it's grown a lot since then, but I've been attending it for 20 years, for however
Yeah.
long it's been going on, really. So yeah, very familiar with the space, and yeah, definitely test played and met designers and people like that.
And then in some of these design, like is like I know here there's a lot of like prototyping groups that kind of get together and play each other's games and things like that. Is there any groups like that that you're part of there in the UK
Oh yeah,
or?
yeah. So we live in London,
Hmm.
so there's a lot happening, and there's a new number of board game cafes that I've got relatively good relationships
Ah,
with, that
okay.
we go to like events and things with them. But yeah, there's designer specific meetups. There's a designer meetup every Friday, in the National Theatre near Waterloo, which I try to go to at least a couple times a month.
Yeah.
And that's just all designers, all just testing some very rough games, some almost sort of finished games. Um, but yeah, that's a really fun group of people. Just there's a bunch of designers there specifically to break each other's games,
Yeah.
which is really good. It's really helpful.
Oh yeah, and they're not afraid to break games. It's I always when I'm talking to colleagues that are looking for advice sometimes on how best to get their game out there. I often say kind of it's good to go to those groups because they go deep and they get to the heart of the mechanisms of the game really quick. On the flip side, the one caution I always put out there is that kind of when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? And when you go to a group where everyone's playtesting each other's games, they're just looking for things to fix and ways to turn into something that they would play. They're not necessarily there just to tell you if this is a fun game or not, right? And so it's very
Sure.
important that you take your game to non-designers and just kind of casual gamers and say, hey, here's something I've created. Do you want to play test it? And then when they're done, the first question you ask them was, did you have fun? Right? That's where it starts. And you bring those two sides together, and hopefully between the two, you've got something really polished that works really well.
The hard part is finding new people, I think, because
Yeah.
at a certain point of testing it with, if you've talked it over with the same people over and over so much, they know the game so well, it makes sense to them. But if you
Yeah.
put it in front of a brand new person, does it make sense to them? That's kind of the hard part. So you've got to
Yeah.
try and expand your social circle,
And
which
best
is
way to do that is through public meetups, I find. So
mm,
find ones where there are people that are just have a common interest looking to get together in a public space. Those are some of the most rich feedback loops you can get is because these are people who have no skin in the game. They're there just to have play games and have fun, right? So if you can somehow include that in your process, it'll definitely enrich the feedback you get on your games. Where are
yeah.
you
And
guys
it's hard
going?
at first because everyone's got. Oh, sorry, I didn't interrupt. I was just
No,
gonna say it's
that's
hard
okay.
at first because everyone's got day jobs before
Yeah,
before your company kicks off and you can actually like put some real time into it. You're trying
yeah.
to work this around everything else, around life.
I've got some of my game groups that I'm part of. Like, there's people that show up like late in the evening, like they're getting there around 6, 7 o'clock at night, right? And then we finish at like 9, 9:30. So they're there for literally one game, and they have to leave. But it's enough to give them a taste of their passion, right? And that's what it's all
Yeah.
about. It's just making sure they're getting that little bit of that passion. Where do you and the team go from here? Are you guys now publishers? Is that the plan? Or is this like a one and done, or kind of where have you guys put some thought around this?
So yeah, I think this is kind of what we want to do with our time
Hmm.
now ultimately. So that, like I said, I was originally trying to just sell the game
Yeah,
and pushing it about, and I was kind of I've had a couple conversations, but nothing that ever quite went anywhere. And I'm not a great necessarily salesperson for myself anyway. A
sure.
bit awkward in person. So again, it's another skill set that I don't have. I just made this thing. Just someone take it. Why do I have to be a marketing? Why do I have marketing skills? But yeah, so I've got that one. I've made a couple other designs that are very rough at the moment. One that's pretty much ready to go. My wife Caley has an idea in mind of something that she thinks would like, and there's different markets. It's sort of aiming more for the children's kind of or the younger audience market. So yeah, there's all these sort of kind of ideas bouncing around. I think we're going to sit down once we've got this one out the way and be like, well, what's our next game? And can we have 2 games in a playtesting state, almost slowly approaching finished next year, whilst we're selling Tempus, like physically actually selling the copies of the game. And yeah, trying to make this whole publishing life potentially our lives down the line.
Oh, it's awesome. It's so cool to see people follow their passions. And with this game, I mean, you guys have funded, so congratulations on that. I want to make sure I get that out there too. So it's not a question of if this is funded. It's already funded. And you guys still have 9 days to go. There's always a hockey stick kind of at the back end that things swing up in the last 72 hours. So
we've been told, yeah.
Yeah, you'll fund way higher than even what you have here. For those that want to check out this campaign, I am going to put a link in the show notes, or you can just type in Trouble On, and right away it'll pop up on Kickstarter. It's easy to find. Kristian, I want to wish you, Caley, your brother, all the best on this campaign. I'm going to be cheering for you guys. I can't wait to see where it ends. Super cool concept. Man, you guys are just kind of, it's cool to see people find a hook that no one else has yet tapped into. And I'm sure you're going to be well rewarded with the final outcome of this campaign, my friend.
We certainly have got big dreams. So yeah, thank you for having us on, or having me on, sorry, just by myself today.
Yeah, no worries, my friend.
Yeah, thank you.
You take care. Cheers. This has been an episode of the Board Game Binge podcast, hosted by James Staley, produced by James Staley and Mike Bruner, with original music by Nick Smith. If you would like to watch these interviews live, simply subscribe to our YouTube channel, Board Game Binge, and you'll get access to live interviews, giveaways, and interesting board game content from across the industry. I can't wait for you to join us. See you next time.